This is a guy, I've been on his digital shows. I was back on his radio show a long time ago, so it's about time we break bread and bring him back on this program and bring him on for the first time. That is Jake Asman of course, the famed Jake Asman Show, which you can find on YouTube. He also does a lot of great hosting on ESPN 98.7 up in New York, so let's bring him in. We got Jake Asman on the show. What's up, Jake?
Boyd Green, thanks for having me, my friend. Yeah, first time on your radio show here, so let's do it.
Well, Jake, you went to both of the first two games at Madison Square Garden in this Pacer series, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I've been at every Knicks home playoff game so far. So my record's 4-1 Knicks fan. So I'll be in the building tomorrow night. Hopefully see the Knicks bounce back and go up 3 games to 2.
Well, that's good. Well, give us first that, Jake. As someone who's been at Madison Square Garden, MSG, what has the atmosphere been? Because Knicks basketball, I was just going to say playoff basketball, but just in general, Knicks basketball over the last decade, 15 years plus, it's been a little questionable. So what has the atmosphere been like rallying around this team with their star in Jalen Brunson?
It's been incredible. You know, Knicks fans are arguably some of the most passionate fans in all of sports, and I always try and tell this to people, like the Knicks are the one team in New York City that for the most part brings the entire city together. With all due respect to Brooklyn Nets fans, we're talking about maybe 5-10% of the New York sport fan population rooting for that team. So you're talking about 90% of the New York sports fan being unified by the Knicks. You know, for every Jet fan, there's a Giant fan. Yankee fan, there's a Met fan. There's 3 hockey teams that split up the fan base in the tri-state area. So the Knicks are that great unifier, and they've been bad for so long. They've been irrelevant for so long. The fact that here they are in the second round for the second straight year, that's something that this franchise hasn't accomplished since 99-2000, so 25 years since the last time the Knicks actually had, you know, sustained winning come playoff time, winning around each of the last 2 years. So the Garden's been electric. Fans are into it. The crowd is, you know, living and dying on every play, and it's been great to see. And obviously, the Knicks have played very well at home throughout these playoffs, and they're going to have to find a way to get it done at home tomorrow, because if the Knicks just win their home games, Paul, they win the series. 2 of the next 3 are at home. So that's really what, to me, it comes down to. Can the Knicks maintain their home court advantage throughout the series?
Before we look forward, let's look back. Jake, you know this better than me. We were both watching the game. But Game 3, the game's tied 106 all, and the Knicks are right there on the precipice of getting it to a 3-0 lead. And I've been screaming it from the rooftops on the show. No team in the history of NBA has ever had a deficit overcome of 3-0 in the NBA playoffs, and the Knicks were right there. And now all of a sudden it's 2-2. I guess that just shows you how fine the line is.
Well said. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how crazy the series has been. I mean, the Pacers needed a miracle shot just to win Game 3. Otherwise, as you bring up, they would have been down 0-3. And then, you know, yesterday was just non-competitive. The Knicks couldn't hit anything early. Indiana didn't miss. And I just think the amount of injuries and minutes played by the Knicks players because of all the injuries really caught up with them. So here you are, 2-2. But, you know, the Knicks have been right there in all these games, besides really yesterday. But you really go back to Game 3, if the Knicks end up losing this series, it all started with that miracle shot that Naismith hit, and that obviously has certainly changed things, you know, from that point moving forward.
What do you make of, or can you provide us, what is the health update on OG Anunoby? We didn't get a chance, obviously, to see him during the Indiana trip. Is he coming back in this series, do you believe?
I would be very surprised if he plays again this series. You know, he hasn't started running yet, according to Tom Thibodeau yesterday. He's doing pool work. I mean, to me, how often do you see a guy suffer a hamstring injury in their back within a couple days? I mean, maybe if he has this miraculous recovery because of the fact after Game 5 tomorrow night, they don't play Game 6 till Friday. Game 7 wouldn't then be till Sunday. Maybe with another 6 days here, Paul, he could be ready for a Game 7. But I'd be surprised. I think the Knicks are going to have to try and find a way to do it without him. And you just wonder at what point are these injuries too much? And it's not even just, you know, the guys who are out with injuries. I think we saw yesterday Jalen Brunson is a compromised player right now. Can he still be an elite scorer, an elite playmaker, and will this team to a win or two at home here? I wouldn't count it out, but I think the same explosiveness that we have been seeing from Brunson, he hasn't been right since that right foot injury, which I think got worse yesterday early on in this game when a player on Indiana landed on him and there was no foul called, of course. I don't think Rick Carlisle was complaining about that one. But, I basically say all that to say they're in a rough spot right now. I mean, you're talking about, 4 major contributors not playing, including an all-star in Julius Randle. OG Anunoby, the Knicks are 25-6 when he's in the lineup. So you take him and Randle out of the lineup. You lose Mitchell Robinson. You lose Boban Bogdanovic off your bench. At some point, these injuries are just going to take a toll. You hope the Knicks have not just completely run out of gas here and coming back home will give them some energy and they'll find a way to get it done. But it's tough. What they're being asked to do right now is very, very difficult. Not saying they can't do it, but I mean the fact of the matter is they're banged up, and I think yesterday it really finally kind of showed and caught up with them.
Again, we're speaking with Jake Asman. He's the host of the Jake Asman Show, baby, on YouTube. He's also a host on ESPN 98.7 up in New York. Joining us, you can follow him at that very handle, at Jake Asman, both on Twitter and on Instagram. And it seems like there's a narrative, Jake, and it seems like based on some of your answers, perhaps that you agree with it, that the Knicks with this tight rotation with Tibbs and with the injuries that have been mounting and the minutes that are being played, that fatigue is catching up to the Knicks. Is that something you're buying into, and is that something we saw during this Indiana road trip?
I think we saw it especially yesterday. I think what happened early on was the Knicks were never able to really overcome kind of that snowball effect, right? They started off missing a lot of good looks, and then Indiana did this, and then the league just got to a point where the Knicks, because maybe they're so exhausted, they couldn't go on that run to kind of break up, the hot shooting from Indiana and get back in the game. They never made that run. Now, on one hand, maybe the spin zone would be, well, because they didn't have to play a nail-biter, close game down to the wire and still lose, maybe the Knicks are more rested and more capable going into, this Game 5 tomorrow night. That's how you have to look at it if you're a Knicks fan, that maybe it's a blessing in disguise that Jalen Brunson didn't need to play close to 48 minutes, same with Josh Hart and Dante DiVincenzo. But, the bottom line is this. If the Knicks were fully healthy, I think they're a much better team than Indiana. The problem is, they're down so many key pieces, and once again, Brunson's not at 100%. I think that's obvious watching him. Do they have enough to get by? That's the big question right now.
Again, we're speaking with Jake Asman here on the show. Is this destined for 7? Is it going 6? Do you believe the Knicks rally? What's your temperature on this?
The Knicks have responded all year to adversity. This is obviously the most glaring case of adversity they're facing to this point. But coming back home tomorrow, Garden's going to be loud. Energy's going to be off the charts. Your role players typically play better at home. That's where I think the Knicks can get that boost from the crowd. So I think we're going 7, though. One way or another, I think this series ends up going 7. And you get to Game 7, anything can happen here. But, the Knicks really can't afford any other injuries here. Otherwise, I just don't think they have enough. So I'm still going to pick them. They've been my team. I've been rallying around this Knicks team all year. But it's not going to be easy. But, this whole year has been about the Knicks somehow finding a way to overcome adversity. So I think it goes 7 and the Knicks find a way to get it done, but it's not going to be easy, that's for sure.
Let's take a step back from this series and look at this very pivotal offseason for the New York Knicks. What do you do with Julius Randle?
It's an excellent question. I mean, look, I think if you have an opportunity to potentially upgrade, you have to seriously consider it. Julius Randle is a warrior. Obviously, I'm sure it kills him to not be out there because, the one thing you could say about Randle is he's been incredibly durable in his Knicks career. So to see him go down and not come back is brutal because they certainly could use him right now. It would alleviate so much of the pressure that's on Jalen Brunson. That being said, his contract is movable. He's paid like a star, but he's not paid like a superstar if you look at his money compared to some of the other top guys at his position. So if there's an opportunity to include him to match the salaries in a potential deal, to get another star player here to the New York Knicks to surround Jalen Brunson with more talent, I think you got to consider it. Who that star player is, I think it's tough to kind of pinpoint who that would be at this point. But, you see it every year in the NBA. There's always a star or two that becomes available. And I think really now for the first time in a long time, the Knicks, because of what they've done these last 2 years with the emergence of Jalen Brunson, they're a destination now for a star player to want to play at. Like, New York is an attractive place to play. You got the city, you got the Garden, but now you have a team and a leader in Jalen Brunson who other players are going to gravitate to. So if it means you got to move Randle to get that deal done to take the next step forward, I think you got to strongly consider it if you're Leon Rose and the Knicks.
Jake, I know you said it's tough to pinpoint, but, well, that's a radio show, baby, and I'm going to put it on your platter to try to see if we can figure out who the heck that guy is. Who is it? Now, it could be, to your point, there's the Tyreek Hill situation where a player out of nowhere all of a sudden becomes surprisingly available and Twitter goes crazy for an hour and a half as we find out where he's going, and then it quickly, a surprising guy becomes available. But is there one that's on the Knicks fans' bucket list, which is the ideal thing? They're looking for insert position and insert player could fit puzzle piece to take this team out over the top, because again, I'm not a Knicks fan, but taking a step back, it feels like to me that this Knicks team is one piece away from truly being a title contender.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Look, I think a couple names to watch. I mean, what's going to happen with the Phoenix Suns, right, after their debacle of a playoff exit? Is Kevin Durant, as he's done everywhere he's been, going to ask out and get traded? Would he finally come to the Knicks after he scorned them a couple of years ago and made a huge mistake aligning himself with Kyrie Irving? Is Devin Booker potentially going to get moved? You look at Philadelphia, how crazy would it be if Embiid actually were to ask out after the battle he had with the Knicks? That's long been rumored about Embiid's love, and actually he even admitted it, that New York's his favorite city to play in, and he has a place here in the city. But he's certainly a name to watch. And there's always a name, as you bring up, and use the Tyreek Hill analogy in the NFL. There's always a name that could come out of nowhere. That all being said, there's also the scenario where the Knicks simply just run it back and say, you know what, if we were healthy, we were already the 2 seed in the East. Are we that far away from having a legitimate opportunity to compete, and then maybe someone becomes available closer to the deadline? But I would probably start with the Suns, just because that situation there bears watching, given the star power they have, the fact that they have a history of making trades as far as like the star players they have on the team asking out of where they've been. So that's where I would probably start, but it's going to be fascinating because I tend to agree with you. I think the Knicks are another star player away with Brunson and this supporting cast, the Nova Knicks, from really being a true championship contender. Not saying they aren't this year, but being among the favorites in the betting odds going into a season next year with that extra star.
Let's go to that point that you just made. I would imagine the most likely scenario is running it back, because then you don't have to make any moves. You just have to retain and attempt to do so, bring back some of the guys that may shake free here. If they do that, I'm curious. So we had Zach Braziller on of the New York Post on last week, and he, to me, said something that I thought was eyebrow-raising. I'm curious where you stand on it. He said if this Knicks team had Julius Randle right now, he believes they would be, if you could wave your magic wand, he never gets hurt and you put him on this current roster, he believes the Knicks would have been a championship contender right now. And so that was kind of his pitch of that if you run it all back, you have Julius Randle potentially there. That is that missing piece that we're kind of talking about in a weird way. What do you make of that? Do you agree or disagree?
I don't disagree, because Julius Randle was having a phenomenal season when he went down. He was an all-star. He was once again going to be on the All-NBA team for the third time in 4 years with the Knicks. He was having a very, very good season for them. I think the question is, Randle in the playoffs has not been a great playoff performer. Now, he's played through some injuries in the 2 playoff runs he's been with the Knicks, so if he were fully healthy, would it be different? Now, and Brunson also kind of being the de facto guy now, Randle would not have an enormous amount of pressure on him in these playoffs. It would be Brunson that would get the attention of the opponent. So I don't think it's a crazy take. I got to see Julius Randle play well in the playoffs before I truly buy in all the way, but it's not unreasonable to think that if they had Randle right now, they would beat Indiana and would have a legitimate chance to take down the Boston Celtics. It would at least be a really competitive, maybe a 6-7 game series. Maybe it still can be, but I don't think Zach's off base. I mean, Julius Randle, to me, he's almost become underrated by Knicks fans and maybe more appreciated now during this run because you don't have him out there, and certainly having another 25 and 10 and just taking that pressure off Brunson would be huge right now.
Is Tibbs the right coach for this team?
I think he is. I mean, who are you going to get that's better? I think all the players buy in. They swear by him. They love him. People blaming Tom Thibodeau for some of these injuries. I think it's just lazy, man. I mean, it's not Tom Thibodeau's fault that Julius Randle, got fouled and landed on his shoulder. It's not his fault that OG Anunoby, who has an injury history, guess what? Got hurt. Was he supposed to not play OG when he was scoring 28 points through 3 quarters the other night in Game 2? Unfortunately, he got hurt. These things are just unfortunate. Is it Tom Thibodeau's fault that Joel Embiid was a dirty player and grabbed his ankle on one of the plays that made his injury worse in the Sixers series? So it's It's tricky. I think Tibbs has done an amazing job overall. When you think about where this franchise was, the culture he's established, the buy-in he gets from his players. I mean, I just listened to what Brunson has said about him, and Josh Hart, and Dante DiVincenzo. They love the guy. The guy's got a history of winning. He understands, the expectations and the difficulty of dealing with Knicks fans and playing in New York. I think he's the right coach at the right time, and I don't think you're getting anyone better. So I think he's definitely the right coach for this team.
And Jake, we'll end on this. If I asked you to name, like the top 10, top 15, top 20, I don't know how far the list goes, of the best basketball players in the NBA right now, where does Jalen Brunson rank?
I think he's got to be in the top 10, right? I mean, you look at what he's done during these playoffs. I mean, find me a player who's more valuable for their team. Like, if Brunson doesn't score close to 40 points a night, this team hasn't won. I mean, what he did against the Sixers was extraordinary. What he did coming off the injury and still coming back and scoring 21 points in the second half against Indiana the other night was the stuff of legends on the 50th anniversary of Willis coming out of the tunnel. Brunson had a similar moment. I mean, you look at what he's meant to this team, what he's asked to do, especially with all the injuries. I mean, to me, Jalen Brunson's a top 10 player in the league right now. He finished fifth in MVP voting, which is a sign he'll be on the All-NBA team this year. I mean, he has gone from a good player in Dallas to last year he was very good year one with the Knicks to a true superstar here in year two with the team. To me, he's a top 10 player in the league. I think it'd be tough to find 10 players right now that are playing better than Jalen Brunson.
All right, and Jake, before we get you out of here, this is strange. I normally don't do this sort of thing, but someone's called in and they'd like to, and I don't know if talk to you or mention something during it. All right, we have a caller on. Whoever you are, state who you are and your business with Jake Asman.
Hey, Jake, you know me, my boy.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, buddy. He promised me he had me on talk to you. I surprised
Bobby
you.
Midnight on the radio.
Wow.
Syracuse, New York.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Well, I call Paul all the time now. He tell me what station. I call him a lot, right, Paul?
Yeah, that's right. So for those who are just listening going, what in God's green earth is happening right now? Bobby, or Bob from Vermont, as he comes in on my call-in screen here. He is a guy who calls in on my Jets digital shows, and obviously, of course, Jake shows. He's a famous reader of super chats and tips online on digital media. He reached out and heard that I was having you on the radio show today, so he wanted to interact with you. He wanted to say hello. He wanted to follow you all the way here to the Salt City in Syracuse, Jake. So, wow, you've got a Asmaniacs. I don't know what to tell you.
Yes, we love you, Paul, too.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Well, Bobby, thank you so much, and for calling in. We appreciate it.
Jake, I'll talk to you later. Bye, Paul.
All right.
You got it, Bobby.
Wow. Okay, Jake, there's your surprise, pal. Apparently, Bobby found you all over the place. So thank you, Jake, as well, for joining us here on the show. What a wonderful experience.
Man, that made my day, Boyd Green. How about that? Bobby Midnight calling into your radio show. Tremendous.
Small world. Jake, thanks for taking the time, buddy, and enjoy Game 5 at the Garden.
Anytime, my man. Let's go Knicks. Thanks for having me.